All right, so welcome to our talk on Beyond Push Notification User Experience, the Redux Mix. I'm Mark Gerl, Director of Mobile Development for Politico.
And I am Chris Buddy, the Director of User Experience for Politico. Real quick, show of hands, how many of you are currently using push notifications as part of your mobile app strategy? Anyone? A few? Okay, good. And second poll question, how many of you saw the first part of this talk last year, pushing the boundaries on UX push? Okay, well then you're about to learn something.
Okay, well this is beyond that, so it's new meat. Caveat here, we design these ideas to illustrate things for us, but they apply to a lot of things. Your mileage may vary as to what you get out of it, but this is just a series of ideas and some depictions of those, and it is by no means a promise of an actual feature set. And when we talk about another app, we're just making stuff up. So, and no goats were harmed in the making of this presentation. I think that's important.
Okay, so we figured we'd try something different. We're tag teaming this presentation. So for the next 20, 25 minutes, you're going to be kind of overhearing a brainstorming session between two UX guys who walk into a bar. Because, let's face it, all UX guys, they walk into a bar, they want to talk about UX stuff. So we're going to be kind of bantering back and forth and kind of pitching ideas and coming up with possible solutions. And the hope is that these solutions are not necessarily concrete, but they inspire you to kind of think outside the box and constantly, kind of push that along. So without further ado, we're in a bar, two UX guys. Mark, catch us up. Where did we leave off the last time we were two UX guys in a bar?
So remember, at the very basic level, push notifications are for the sole purpose of getting the user's attention outside of your app in a context-relative and timely fashion that the user can either choose to act on or not act on. So, looking at the standard interface for push notifications, these are iOS only, but they're pretty much the same. You can expect text, you get a little badge, maybe sound, and very little bit of data. And we thought from the get-go this was great when it first came out, but it turned blah really, really, really quickly. So at Politico, what we did was we took it a little bit step further. Instead of a news app giving you a breaking news and then sending you right into the app, but just leaving you on the doorstep, we wanted to take it further and actually bring in a full context of the notification, not, to fill in the ... that's at the end of almost every push, because they're only about a tweet, size. So this was our initial offering. We actually have 4 different types of push notifications that our apps support, one of which is breaking news, and in this case, general alerts about a live stream event. And so what we did was, in the last talk, we actually explored where do we go from here. We did this, all right, and where do we go from here? Let's take this rich. It's not just text. Okay, yeah, it has expirations and things like that are a little bit more, but maybe we go full multimedia. It's just content. It doesn't have to be limited to just text. We could use animated depictions of, the expiration date of breaking news, because breaking news is only breaking for an hour. Give a standard action button and let people actually push, or share that rich content with their friends, and and add dimension, not just have one notification at a time, which is a limitation of most apps, but to be able to stack them up, and so the user can see them if they weren't able to get to them one by one, that you stack up. So that's where we left off, and that brings us to an interesting segue here. Within breaking news alone, the problem is it starts to get a little bit thick. Apps start to push a lot of different things under the same category of breaking news. We have that switch box on off so the user can change it. But the last thing you want to do is over push to your users and immediately lose that context and lose that connection to them. So, what if we, try to empower our users, and give them a little bit more criteria to work with, even within the concept of breaking news. And Chris, what would that, what might that look like?
Okay, so looks like we've got a breaking news event now. President Obama announced Wednesday afternoon that he'll nominate Representative Mel Watt, Democrat from North Carolina. Oh, all right, so here comes another breaking news. Here we go. Press Secretary Jay Carney discusses investigation of North Korean imprisonment of an American citizen. Now, the problem that we see with this is that there, as Mark just said, they're both breaking news alerts, but to me, these are very, very different things. So the first one is probably a story, right, or a blog. It's already happened, and we're kind of breaking the news that it has happened. Whereas the second one kind of lends itself a bit more to video or potentially live content. So we should really think about how we segment this out, and maybe everything isn't breaking. So, you know, potentially we have a problem to solve.
So, Chris, what would it look like if we did? I mean, you can't really tell this is live, but if it were a live event, what would that, you know, what might that look like?
Okay. Maybe it starts at the push alert itself, right? So maybe instead of breaking, everything's breaking, maybe this is live now, and we're starting to maybe on the kind of on the sign up or in the push notifications area, we're actually segmenting those out into various pieces, and that may look something like this.
Yeah, this gives you a little bit of a different sense of urgency. It's something that didn't just happen, that, you know, you just got wind of. It's actually something that's about to happen, and you might have the time and the interest to act on that right now. It gives you more context just by this. And so, you know, what would it look like if we took that, you know, setting and broke it out from just a single breaking news into more complicated settings? What would that look like?
Okay, so here's an example. Current state is that you have breaking news on or off, or video on or off, but let's segment that out further. So in breaking news, for those of you who can't see it in the back, we've now segmented this out as, you know, hypothetical segments. National security breaking news, congressional votes, White House press conferences, Pentagon, and so forth. And then we have, you know, kind of live stream video alerts, like what's your threshold? What type of alerts do you want to receive throughout the day as part of this?
So what happens in the app when you know, a live event is about to start, you get a breaking news and you immediately act on that. That's the user telling your app, hey, I want to go to that thing. I just don't want to read the ... I don't want to hear about it. I want to go to it. So basically, you'd want to change the context to take you into something that's a little bit more relevant for this particular thing. What would that... So could we go right to the...
Absolutely. So in this Jay Carney example, we could pull them directly from that push notification into the app itself in the middle of a live stream as we kind of, you know, while it's in progress.
Right. So what we're illustrating here is actually giving your users some relevant context for that particular push notification within a particular set of time. If you did this later, if that event was already passed, you wouldn't have this as a place to go. And we'll talk about that as an idea later. So what we're looking at here now is context-specific notifications.
All right, let me stop you right there. Context-specific notifications. We just went through push alerts, and now we've pulled them into the app itself. Like, our job's done, right? We can high-five at that point. It's over.
No, not true.
Okay.
I think we can use push notifications within the context of the user engaged within our app to do something different and innovative. In other words, it's not always just about getting their attention outside the app and bringing them in. That's the basic premise of it. Push notifications come to you while your app is actually engaged with. And so, for example, do you remember in the last talk I mentioned the idea that we could maybe use push notifications to send a live poll, something that the user will interact with. Not just information that they get, but they'll actually interact with it. Well, obviously the analogy is easy to imagine what it would be like. You send a notification, poll happening now for, you know, whatever the next hour, 2 hours, whatever the time frame, and then the user interacts with it, and they can, you know, answer the poll and then go about their way within your app. But what if we take it a step further, thinking back to the live stream that we were just looking at? If a notification came in for a poll, at the same time that user was engaged with that live stream event, we don't want to interrupt their stream. You don't want to do that. So what would happen in this case? You're watching a live stream.
Okay, so we pulled them into the app itself. We're watching a live stream, and that poll idea, we now use push technology to drop this poll right in. Video is still playing, live video. You don't miss a beat, right? You're in there. You've presented with this poll ID, and even from there, maybe we use that to push these results. So after they're answering these poll questions, this is live data that the app users are seeing, and even the TV personalities themselves, the video personalities, what have you. They can actually use this data as part of this live presentation and tallying. And then when you're done and you close it out, you're still in that process. You keep going and going and going. But now these are new features, right? We're talking about brand new features that are not in the in the old versions of the apps. What happens, Mark? The users that are out of date with their apps don't get this, right?
Yes, this is a huge problem for mobile developers. Is that you've created, you worked really hard for, whatever period of time, you created a new version of your app, you brought all these really cool features, live stream videos and, live polls and all this new push technology, but you find that 50% of your users are still on an older version of your app and they can't get these features. So what can you do to, to help get them forward? If they're not engaged with your app, then you can't nudge them or nag them or even force them to upgrade from within your app. So you push notifications to the rescue. What I'm talking about here is version-targeted push notifications. And so, this is like using the push notification mechanism again to get their attention to upgrade your app.
All right, so I got a good one right here. This is the perfect solution. Hey there, 2011 called, and they want their antiquated app back. Get with the times, update now, right? That's compelling.
Yes, that would be compelling. The only problem is if we just send out this kind of a notification to all our users who are accepting, native notifications on app updates, then we actually have the potential of sending that notification to people who've already updated the app. Now, there's 3 different kinds of people here in this particular case. There's those who have not updated your app, those who've updated your app, they're not using it, and those who have updated your app and they're actively engaged in it, so they're already aware potentially of your new features. So as silly as this sounds, don't do it. Not a good idea. So let's take this scenario a little bit deeper. And in a version-targeted sense, let's say we work for Manji Studios and we're proudly working on this, put out this new version of Temple Run 2, a very popular game, and we've added a new level, okay? The old game, you can only go so far. And so we've added a new level, added new gameplay, some features, etc. But we want to tell our users about it. Well, what we push to each of those set of users would be different based on where they fell into that criteria. So, for example, are they using the old version? Are they using the new version?
And then you can push them accordingly, right? Push
Absolutely.
A, push B. But take, for example, this push B, right? That makes the assumption that they've both upgraded the app, but they are in use of the app. They're using the app on a regular basis versus just saying, you know what, I really don't like to see that annoying badging. Just update everything. I can't stand to feel like I'm behind the times. So
Absolutely.
How do we deal with that issue?
So, as I've just mentioned, that there's actually 3. Those who are using your app, have the upgrade but haven't used it, and those who have used it and are engaged in it. So if we dive in deeper to the scenario, now we're talking about using version-targeted with app-specific content. Okay, so this is where your server knows where your users are within their game space. They know whether they've got the old version or the new version, and they also know, did they complete the game? Did they finish the existing levels? Are they ready for the new level? And in each of those cases, you end up with a decision tree, and this tree could obviously get big, and you can decide when to push which ones, what to push or not push. These are not, you don't have to do all of these. And so, what would it look like, Chris, if we built some notifications for this game for these things?
Sure. So the first example you had of push A is they are not on the newest version and they have not completed the app. So maybe we've pushed this, we've updated our game with improvements and added a challenging new level, update now, and we're actually pulling them directly into the game or the interface itself. And that messaging of update now with a single click allows them to do that. And then for the second version, right, their app is out of date, but they have completed the level. What's most compelling? Hey, we've got this new level. So we've updated our game with the challenging new level. Update now to continue your adventure. In the same process, you pull them into the app itself, allow them one quick tap for updating. And then for the second 2, we have their update on they have their app to the newest version. They're updated, but they haven't completed that new game. new level. And so what we're trying to do is pull them in and again continue them on that game. That's that pulling them into that the app and allowing them to use it. And so for the last one, they've both updated and they've completed this new level. And maybe at this point it's kind of bragging about a brand new feature of your app. Like now it's connected into Game Center. And so you're kind of again pulling them into that app and allowing them to kind of move forward there.
Right. So with this example, you wouldn't brag about the Game Center integration to somebody who hasn't already got the app. You need to tease them forward, but you only have so much to work with here. So this brings us to user-generated criteria or user-defined pushes based on event triggers. Now we've been talking about pushes that are all generated, by the mothership, and they're pushed down, to the apps, to the users through their apps. And what I'd like to do is really be able to use push notifications in a way that the users can define what they are getting. So we're taking segmenting breaking news is a great first step. And now what if we want to do more? Like, for example, Chris, on our website, if you're a website user of Politico, you can go in and you can actually subscribe to a particular author. So whenever they publish a story,
Right, you get that in your inbox, right? So Maggie Haberman, Mike Allen, all these very kind of popular authors, sign up, you can become a more passive user, and every time they publish, just send me an email, and I'll come back into your site to read that.
But email is so desktop. It's not very mobile. So what we want is to use push notification technology and this type of thing to allow for that sort of type of subscription. So what would that look like?
Gotcha. So here we go. Another push alert. Custom alert, Maggie Haberman has just published a new story. And what this does is it pulls them right into the app for that most recent story that Maggie Haberman has published.
Because the user is interested in Maggie Haberman's stories. Now, this shows the push, and you know how that happened. But how did the user set this up? What was the, how did they define one of these, user-generated push alerts?
So here's an example. You're in the app itself. You're reading a story, a blog post, something. Everyone's familiar with tagging, right? Tagging your content. Quite common these days. But as you go in, you're reading a story written by Tony Rahm, and the topics covered are cybersecurity and CISPA and technology and homeland security and so forth. And let's potentially allow a one-tap access to creating these alerts based on the content that you're interested in. So maybe we've got an interface that flies up, and in this kind of middle area here, it says drag your favorite authors and topics here. You drag cybersecurity in, and maybe you want to schedule this alert or these alerts, and you tap on send alerts, and you come to an area that allows you to say, I want you to send me a push notification every time you have a story, a blog, a photo gallery, a video tagged with cybersecurity. Or maybe, like myself, I spend my entire day working. I come home, I put my kids to bed, 7:45, 8 o'clock, and at that point, I become a more engaged app user, a reader. And so maybe, in my instance, maybe I would want to say, you know what, collect everything you have, tagged with cybersecurity, and just hit me once at the end of the day. When I specify that, 8 p.m., I'll expect that push, and now I'm kind of brought into the app, and I'm able to kind of see all of these cybersecurity topics and components.
This is great. What a great way to set up a user-generated push from the application up to your server, and then they can get alerted when it best suits them. But what would these kind of alerts look like, especially the ones that collected content for you?
Right. I think not too dissimilar from the standard pushes that we were looking at. So custom alert, this top version. Today we published 8 stories on cybersecurity, and again, that's for the folks who want to get that at one push a day, collect everything, and potentially this on-demand, pushing custom alert. We just published a new story on cybersecurity, and this obviously everybody's going to see these alerts all day. They're going to be staring at their phone and they're going to be pulling it. Right? No, come on.
No. The reality is they may be interested in this stuff, and they might decide when they're interested in it. They may not be as interested in on-demand, depending on the frequency of which some of these prolific authors write. So they need to be able to, skip over it and manage it, et cetera. And so there's got to be a way to collect this content when they're not in their app into a way that fits with the app structure. Something that, where they can see what they've what they've missed or what they haven't read yet, and have it, just be there as they need on demand. So they got the notifications, but how do they manage this content in the app? What would that look like?
Sure. So let's take, for example, within the app's navigational structure itself, creating something like my custom alerts. So you know that I've tagged cybersecurity as an alert and I want it published once a day, and what happens if I miss that at 8 o'clock? Having some sort of a second chance capability within the app itself to come in and, there's 8 stories of cybersecurity and 3 for Maggie Haberman and 1 for Mike Allen, but allowing the user to control those and to, if they miss those alerts, come in and always have access to that content.
Yeah, I think that's really great. I mean, we've shown how we can actually create them by the context within the article. We've shown how we can collect them in a way that makes sense for the app. But how do we manage that? What would the settings look like to be able to edit these or delete them?
Okay, good question. So a few minutes ago we were talking about kind of segmenting breaking news and offering live stream options and so forth. And at the very bottom of that interface, I knew we were going to have to kind of manage some sort of alerts. We can bring readers into the alerts that they have set up. You can turn them on, you can turn them off. You can, if you said publish on demand and, oh my gosh, they all publish in the middle of the day, I can't get to them in the middle of the day. I want to reschedule this for later in the evening and so forth. And so some sort of a very comfortable interface that allows them, to kind of manage these.
Right. We've shown all those different, ways, one possible set of ways that we could manage user-generated custom alerts. And I mean, these are very, simple depictions of reusing an existing really cool technology such as push notifications for the benefit of the application and the increased user experience. So, where do we go from here? Well, the possibilities are endless, and I'd like to highlight a couple. We talked about, pulling up your alerts or your content and only delivering it, like a digest at one time a day. But what if you want to use geofencing to decide when to deliver those alerts? For example, you work on the hill, okay? You don't want to be bothered while you're driving if you happen to be late or, early in a particular day, but you need to get certain content on demand as it's needed and you want it to be ready on your phone. Well, you could use geofencing that says, when I get to the office, make sure I've got all my stuff ready to go. Or when I get home at night, that's my time to decompress, grab my iPad, sit on the couch and read my news. And so, you might want to use, say, when I get home. And if you work late one night, you're not getting your 6 p.m. push when you're still at the office until 8. So it's a really interesting extension to this. Another one is bridging the expiration context. Politico has a concept of breaking news expires within an hour, because after an hour, it's not breaking anymore, and there's usually an article that's been written about it, so it's more appropriate to get into that content. But bridging the expiration context with relevant, post-event content. We showed live events. We showed triggers for, here's a live streaming event from the White House, Jay Carney's talking, whatever. Once that's done, it may not be available again. If they come back and try and access that push notification later, or they just got out of a meeting or out of lunch or whatever, out of their car, out of a tunnel, off a train, they don't, they missed it. But yet, we could still take them into something relevant within the app. So just bringing you in the app and dropping you on the front doorstep, where the user's got to go, well, what do I do now? I missed an event, I guess. I didn't know that happened. Well, maybe we could take them to something that was context specific that says, hey, here's a summary of what happened during that event. Here's a bunch of articles that have been written since. It was this time of day, blah, blah, blah. So a bunch of data. And, you could have other event triggers that are automatically generated by maybe the user first enters your saved articles section for the very first time. You know how a lot of apps show you that little, like a tutorial overlay kind of thing? Well, the problem is a lot of those have to be built into the apps. Well, we could use a push notification trigger to actually generate on-demand content that is pulled down from your server, so you can keep that up to date without having to rev your app, and you could use a bunch of triggers. I've outlined a lot of these in the slides, so you'll definitely want to get them. Oh, but what about the goat?
Yeah, so funny story, maybe not so funny. So Mark came up with this awesome title about 2 UX guys coming into a bar and ... a goat. And we really struggled with how we were going to fulfill that obligation. So, here's the goat. We tried some jokes, and they all fell flat. people were like, wow, you're going to tell goat jokes at a conference? Don't do that. And we were like, all right, fine, but we promised a goat. So unfortunately, here's your goat. But maybe we can tie it in. If you're not pushing the UX boundaries on your apps, then potentially you're... So, better timing next time, I promise. Right. So anyway, that's...
So the moral to the story here is you want to always be evolving user experience. And this is the same recap slide I have on the original talk because it's still apropos. Sometimes it's cool not just to take the status quo. Just don't take the text. It's not good enough. Turn it into a rich, immersive experience that makes sense for that context, for those users. Let them control the information flow so you don't over-push and you don't lose the people, because the fastest way to get one of your users to flip off notifications for your entire app is to over-push to them, or to send them something, or get their attention, or nag them, or alert them at a very inopportune time. So you have to manage this, balancing act. And the key takeaway here is, we make it sound simple. We threw some pictures up, and but it's not too complicated to push the boundaries. We've already done it, and we're looking forward to doing it more. And we've seen other apps who've paid attention to this have actually, taken note and used some of this. Check out the AP mobile app. They used a lot of the concepts that I introduced in the first talk. Here's the slides. If you'll want to get the slides, there is a really good joke in the slides.
It's not good.
Anyway, thank you very much for coming. That's our time.
Thanks.
We'll be outside for Q&A.